Get that filthy homeless brat away from my $80 million jet before she contaminates something! Richard Blackstone's voice cuts through the Denver International Airport hangar like a blade. His manicured finger points at 12-year-old Zara Williams, whose small frame trembles near the massive aircraft. 6 world-renowned aerospace engineers from Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Pratt Whitney have just declared his Gulfstream G700 completely unfixable after 2 months of failed attempts. The mysterious engine shutdowns have grounded his empire and cost him $500,000 every single day. Security moves to grab her thin arms. But before they can drag her away, Zara looks up at the towering billionaire and whispers 5 words that will change everything. Let me try. Have you ever watched a single whisper from a forgotten child shatter everything the adult world thought it knew? The premier aviation services hangar sits like a cathedral of wealth at Denver International Airport. Inside, the most expensive private jets in Colorado rest under gleaming lights that cost more than most people's annual salaries. This is where billionaires park their flying palaces, where every surface gleams with perfection, and the air itself seems to smell of money and power. But for the past 2 months, one aircraft has turned this sanctuary into a battlefield of frustrated genius and wounded pride. Blackstone's Gulfstream G700 squats on the hangar floor like a wounded giant. $80 million of aerospace perfection, equipped with twin Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 engines that should purr like contented lions. Each engine contains over 40,000 individual components, engineered to tolerances measured in thousandths of inches. The aircraft represents the pinnacle of human technological achievement, a machine that can carry 12 passengers at 600 miles per hour through the thin air of the stratosphere. Instead, these mechanical marvels have become terrorists of the sky, shutting down without warning at 41,000 feet, forcing emergency landings that made international headlines and sparked conspiracy theories across aviation forums worldwide. The technical mystery has attracted the aviation world's most brilliant minds. Dr. Patricia Webb leads the diagnostic team, a woman whose MIT PhD in aerospace engineering and 30 years at Boeing earned her legendary status in circles where reputations are built on solving impossible problems. Her silver hair and steel-rimmed glasses have become familiar sights at congressional hearings on aviation safety. When airlines face unexplainable mechanical failures, they call Dr. Webb. Her team includes the industry's elite. Dr. Marcus Carter from Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division, the secretive unit that designed stealth fighters and spacecraft. Sarah Rodriguez from Pratt Whitney's Advanced Diagnostics Unit, who holds 17 patents on engine monitoring systems. James Morrison from Boeing's Commercial Airplanes division, whose computer models predicted metal fatigue failures 20 years before they occur. Between them, they possess over 2 centuries of combined experience. They've solved mysteries that grounded entire fleets, identified microscopic cracks that could have killed hundreds of passengers, and redesigned systems that seemed perfect until they weren't. They've subjected Blackstone's jet to every test known to modern aerospace engineering. Quantum-level diagnostics that examine molecular bonds, ultrasonic imaging that reveals internal stresses invisible to the naked eye, thermal mapping that identifies heat signatures smaller than a human hair, computer simulations that cost $50,000 per hour to operate, running scenarios that would take human brains centuries to calculate. The diagnostic equipment alone represents $5 million in cutting-edge technology. Sensors that can detect vibrations measured in nanometers. Acoustic analyzers that separate individual component sounds from the symphony of a running engine. Chemical detectors that identify trace elements in exhaust gases. Yet every test returns the same maddening conclusion. All systems normal, perfect compression ratios, ideal fuel mixture, flawless electronic coordination between thousands of sensors and actuators. According to every instrument, every computer, every diagnostic protocol, this aircraft should fly forever without a single malfunction. But 3 times at cruising altitude, both engines have simultaneously shut down. 3 emergency landings at airports that weren't prepared for unscheduled arrivals. 3 investigations by Federal Aviation Administration teams that found nothing wrong. The aircraft remains grounded indefinitely, an $80 million monument to the limits of human understanding. Every day of grounding cost Blackstone's empire $500,000 in missed international deals. His tech company's stock price has dropped 15% as investors lose confidence in a CEO who can't even keep his own airplane running. Board members whisper about leadership changes. Competitors circle like vultures, ready to steal contracts that depend on Blackstone's ability to travel. His biggest merger, a $2 billion acquisition of a Japanese tech firm, requires him to fly to Tokyo tomorrow morning. The deal has been 18 months in negotiation. Without his jet, the meetings will be postponed indefinitely. In the high-stakes world of international business, delays kill deals. His company's future hangs on this single flight. The hangar buzzes with tension as thick as summer humidity. Journalists lurk outside the security perimeter, drawn by the story of a tech mogul brought low by mechanical rebellion. Social media feeds overflow with memes about the cursed billionaire jet. Aviation forums debate theories ranging from corporate sabotage to electromagnetic interference from alien spacecraft. Into this cauldron of desperation and wounded pride steps 12-year-old Zara Williams. She shouldn't be here. Children don't belong in this world of sharp suits and sharper tempers, where conversations involve million-dollar decisions and careers can evaporate with a single mistake. But survival has taught her to become invisible, to find the cracks where forgotten people can slip through society's defenses. For 3 weeks, Zara has worked the night cleaning shift for Premier Aviation Services. The janitorial supervisor, Maria Santos, hired her off the books for $40 a night. No questions asked. No paperwork required, no background checks or age verification, just a small girl with desperate eyes and gentle hands who sweeps debris and empties trash bins while the important people sleep in expensive beds. Maria doesn't know that Zara lives alone in a 1997 Honda Civic with 200,000 miles and a cracked windshield that spiderwebs across her view of the world. She doesn't know the child survives on airport vending machine scraps. Stale sandwiches discarded after their expiration dates, half-empty coffee cups left by hurried travelers, packets of crackers that fall from overstuffed carry-on bags. She doesn't know that Zara chose this parking lot because airplane engines remind her of the grandfather who raised her until his death 2 years ago, or that she showers in employee restrooms at 3 in the morning, charges her grandfather's old phone at janitor stations, and sleeps in her car under lights that never go dark. Master Sergeant James Williams had been more than family. He'd been Zara's entire universe, an Air Force mechanic who could diagnose engine problems by listening to their heartbeat. He'd taught his granddaughter that machines weren't just metal and circuits and computer code. They were living things with souls that spoke to those pure enough to hear their whispered secrets. When pneumonia took him at age 74, it left 10-year-old Zara orphaned twice. Her parents had died in a highway collision when she was 8, their car crushed by a drunk driver who walked away without a scratch. The foster care system swallowed her like quicksand, moving her between homes where older kids stole her grandfather's tools and adults treated her mechanical gifts as troublesome quirks that made her different, difficult, unmarketable to potential adoptive families. At 12, she'd escaped from a group home where the supervisor sold food stamps for drug money, and older boys hurt smaller children in ways that left no visible marks. She'd chosen homelessness over helplessness, survival over safety, freedom over the false security of a system that had failed her repeatedly. For weeks, she'd listened to Blackstone's troubled jet during her cleaning rounds. Each failed diagnostic test reached her ears like a cry for help that only she seemed to hear. She'd witnessed 17 attempted engine starts, each one singing the same song of mechanical distress her grandfather had taught her to recognize in the rhythm of pistons and the whistle of compressed air. The engines weren't broken. They were afraid. Tonight, the diagnostic team has gathered for one final attempt before recommending complete engine replacement. Dr. Webb stands before a wall of monitoring equipment that blinks with the intensity of a space mission control room. Her team clusters around laptops displaying engine parameters in real-time graphs that dance like electronic heartbeats across glowing screens. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Webb announces to the assembled crowd of engineers, executives, and journalists, "we've exhausted every known diagnostic protocol in the aerospace industry. This aircraft exhibits perfect mechanical function in every measurable parameter. Yet it continues to experience catastrophic shutdown events that defy scientific explanation. That's when Zara steps out from behind the tool cart where she'd been emptying trash bins, clutching her grandfather's faded photograph like a talisman against the adult world's casual cruelty. The photograph in Zara's trembling hands shows Master Sergeant James Williams in his Air Force dress uniform, chest decorated with ribbons earned across 3 decades of service. His weathered face carries the gentle smile that had been Zara's entire world for the 4 years between her parents' death and his own. Grandfather hadn't just raised her. He'd rebuilt her shattered spirit with the same patient precision he used to repair broken aircraft engines. Every evening after school, 8-year-old Zara would find him in his garage workshop, surrounded by the mechanical poetry of disassembled engines. Carburetors spread across workbenches like metal flowers. Pistons arranged in neat rows like sleeping soldiers. The air is thick with the honest smell of motor oil and metal shavings. "Come here, baby girl," he'd say, lifting her onto his lap beside whatever engine demanded his attention that day. "Put your little hands right here on the cylinder block. Close your eyes. Feel that?" Zara would press her palms against warm metal, feeling vibrations that seemed to pulse with life. "What am I feeling, grandfather?" "That's the engine's heartbeat. Every machine has a soul, and souls speak to those pure enough to listen. Most grown folks forget how to hear magic because they think being loud makes them smart, but machines only trust quiet voices." He taught her that engines weren't just collections of mechanical parts following engineering principles. They were living entities that developed personalities, preferences, fears. A healthy engine sang with contentment. A troubled engine cried for help in frequencies that sensitive ears could detect. "Engines don't lie to children, baby girl," he'd whisper as they worked together. "They save their secrets for hearts that haven't forgotten how to believe in magic." The garage became their classroom. By age 9, Zara could identify engine problems by sound alone, a skill that seemed impossible until the December morning when her elementary school's heating system failed during a blizzard that trapped 200 children and teachers in a building growing colder by the hour. Adult technicians arrived with expensive diagnostic equipment, running tests that showed perfect boiler function while ice crystals formed on classroom windows. They spoke in technical jargon about pressure differentials and thermal coefficients, their instruments displaying graphs that made no sense of the building's stubborn refusal to produce heat. 9-year-old Zara stood in the boiler room, listening to the mechanical symphony that others heard as meaningless noise. The main unit hummed with perfect mechanical rhythm, but underneath that steady pulse, she detected something else, a sad, irregular whisper that reminded her of her grandfather's cough during his final illness. "Excuse me," she'd said to the lead technician, her child's voice barely audible above the equipment noise. "I think the machine is trying to tell you something." The adults had laughed, but desperation made them willing to humor a child's fantasy. When Zara pointed to a specific valve assembly and suggested a simple adjustment, they'd made the change to prove her wrong. The building filled with blessed warmth within minutes. The impossible problem had been a tiny calibration issue that sophisticated diagnostics missed because they were programmed to ignore variations within normal parameters. But Zara's untrained ears had heard the boiler's mechanical distress, the subtle rhythm that meant one component was working too hard to compensate for another's weakness. That miracle established the foundation of her gift, but it also marked the beginning of her isolation. Other children called her weird. Teachers didn't know how to explain a 9-year-old who understood machines better than certified technicians. Foster families wanted normal children who played with normal toys, not strange girls who whispered to broken appliances. Grandfather's death when she was 10 had shattered more than her heart. It destroyed her last connection to a world where her gift was celebrated rather than feared. The foster care system treated mechanical intuition as a behavioral problem requiring correction. Social workers wrote reports about inappropriate attachments to inanimate objects and difficulty relating to peers. But even in the darkest group home, even when older kids stole her grandfather's tools and adults told her that dead people couldn't teach living children, Zara carried his most important lesson in her heart. "Remember, baby girl," he'd whispered during their final conversation as pneumonia claimed his breath. "Don't let them convince you that magic isn't real. Your gift doesn't come from fancy schools or expensive equipment. It comes from love. Love for the machines that trust you with their secrets. Love for the people those machines are trying to serve. Love strong enough to listen when everyone else is just making noise. Living alone in her car, surviving on scraps and sleeping under airport lights, 12-year-old Zara had clung to that promise. Every night, as aircraft engines sang their mechanical lullabies across the tarmac, she'd whisper her grandfather's motto like a prayer against the loneliness that threatened to consume her. Machines don't lie to children. They save their secrets for hearts that haven't forgotten how to believe in magic. Tonight, standing in a hangar full of adults who'd forgotten that magic exists, Zara prepares to prove that some secrets can only be heard by those brave enough to listen with love instead of logic. The moment Zara whispers, "Your engines aren't broken, they're just scared," the hangar falls into the kind of silence that precedes either miracles or disasters. Dr. Webb's expression shifts from condescending amusement to sharp irritation. She spent 2 months of her professional reputation on this problem. Board meetings with airline executives. Congressional testimony about aviation safety. Her name is attached to a failure that's making headlines worldwide. And now a homeless 12-year-old suggests the solution is emotional therapy for machinery. Security! Dr. Webb's voice cuts through the silence like a scalpel. Remove this child immediately. We're conducting serious aerospace diagnostics, not running a daycare center for delusional children. The security guards move forward, their hands reaching for Zara's thin arms. But something in her voice, a quiet certainty that reminds him of his own daughter's stubborn wisdom, makes Blackstone raise his hand. Wait! The billionaire kneels to Zara's eye level, his expensive suit creasing against the hangar's polished concrete floor. In her dark eyes, he sees something his corporate instincts recognize as dangerous truth. In boardrooms, he's learned to identify the moment when conventional wisdom crumbles and impossible solutions emerge from unexpected sources. What exactly do you think is wrong with my airplanes, sweetheart? Zara clutches her grandfather's photograph tighter, the faded image providing courage against the weight of adult skepticism. The engines are trying to protect each other, but they don't know how to say it in grown-up words. When the new computer talks to them, it makes sounds that feel like yelling, so they go to sleep to make the scary noises stop. The crowd erupts in laughter that echoes off the hangar's steel walls like mockery made manifest. 6 PhD engineers dissolving into mirth at a child's fairy tale explanation for sophisticated mechanical failure. Journalists frantically scribble notes about the surreal scene unfolding before their cameras. Airport workers press against windows, drawn by the spectacle of professional authority confronting childish impossibility. Dr. Webb steps forward, her silver hair catching the harsh fluorescent lights. Professional patients exhausted by 2 months of failure, and now this public humiliation. Mr. Blackstone, this is exactly the kind of unscientific thinking that wastes resources and delays real solutions. This child is describing anthropomorphic fantasy, not aerospace engineering. She turns to address the gathering crowd with the authority of 3 decades solving impossible problems, her voice carrying the weight of institutional knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing with quantum-level precision machinery worth $80 million. This aircraft contains 47 integrated computer systems monitoring thousands of sensors in real-time coordination that represents the pinnacle of human technological achievement. Her gesture encompasses the wall of blinking monitors, each displaying streams of data that would overwhelm university engineering professors. Banks of computers processing terabytes of diagnostic information, sensors capable of detecting molecular-level stress fractures, equipment that costs more than small nations spend on their entire military budgets. This child has nothing but fairy tales and wishful thinking, Dr. Webb continues, her voice rising with indignation. We don't solve mechanical failures with bedtime stories about scared engines. We use science, mathematics, empirical data, not the fantasies of a homeless child who probably can't even spell aerospace. The crowd murmurs agreement, logic versus lunacy. PhD expertise versus childish imagination. The outcome seems as predictable as gravity. But Blackstone finds himself caught between financial desperation and something deeper, a memory of his own daughter at 12, explaining why her science fair volcano worked when the teacher's demonstration failed. Children sometimes see solutions that adult expertise overlooks, unencumbered by the weight of conventional wisdom. The Tokyo deal hangs in the balance like a sword suspended by gossamer threads. $2 billion, his company's future, his personal fortune built over 20 years of calculated risks. Everything depends on this aircraft flying tomorrow morning for meetings that cannot be postponed, rescheduled, or conducted by video conference. International business operates on trust, built through personal relationships. Handshakes exchanged at 30,000 feet. Deals closed in the rarefied air of executive privilege. Without his jet, he becomes just another entrepreneur begging for video calls with executives who demand physical presence as proof of serious intent. "Dr. Webb," he says slowly, each word weighted with the gravity of potential financial suicide, "you've had 2 months, 6 brilliant engineers, unlimited resources, $5 million in diagnostic equipment, and we're exactly where we started, with a grounded aircraft and no explanations." He looks down at Zara, whose small frame seems even tinier, surrounded by towering adults and massive machinery. Her oversized janitor's uniform hangs like a tent on her malnourished body. Her shoes, held together with duct tape, squeak against polished concrete. Everything about her screams impossibility. What harm could 1 hour do? The challenge escapes his lips before rational thought can stop it, driven by the desperation of a man watching his empire crumble. "Sweetheart, these 6 doctors have tried everything they know for 2 months, but if you really think you understand my airplane better than they do..." He pauses, realizing the insanity of what he's about to propose in front of rolling cameras and live news feeds. "You have exactly 1 hour. If you can tell me what's wrong with engines that the smartest people in aerospace can't figure out, I'll give you $30,000 and make sure you never sleep in a car again." The hangar explodes with shocked murmurs that build into a crescendo of disbelief. $30,000, a homeless child, 1 hour to solve what PhD teams couldn't crack in 8 weeks of intensive investigation. "But," Blackstone continues, his businessman's instincts demanding protection against public humiliation that could destroy his reputation, "when you can't solve this problem, and sweetheart, you won't be able to, you'll be permanently banned from this airport. Security will have your photograph. You'll never set foot on this property again. Deal?" Before Zara can respond, a new voice cuts through the chaos like a blade through silk. "I'll supervise this test." Captain Maria Santos steps forward from the crowd, her pilot's uniform crisp despite the late hour. 30 years of commercial aviation experience etched in the lines around her eyes, the only pilot Blackstone truly respects. The woman who's landed crippled aircraft in Category 5 hurricanes and talked nervous co-pilots through mechanical emergencies that should have killed everyone aboard. Her weathered face carries the wisdom of someone who's seen enough miracles at 40,000 feet to know they sometimes arrive in unexpected packages. "I've watched enough impossible things happen in aviation to know that wisdom doesn't always come with fancy degrees," Santos says, her voice carrying the quiet authority earned through decisions made in crisis moments when lives hang in the balance. The clock starts ticking. 1 hour to prove that magic still exists in a world that's forgotten how to believe. Zara approaches the massive Gulfstream G700 like a child meeting a sleeping giant. Her bare feet make no sound against the polished concrete as she circles the aircraft, her small hands trailing along the fuselage with the gentleness her grandfather taught her during those precious evenings in his garage workshop. The aircraft towers above her tiny frame, $80 million of aerospace perfection that dwarfs her malnourished body. Twin Rolls-Royce Pearl. 700 engines hang beneath swept wings like dormant dragons, each containing over 40,000 precision-engineered components that represent the pinnacle of human technological achievement. "First, everyone needs to be completely quiet," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the hum of diagnostic equipment that fills the hangar with electronic symphony. "Machines don't like to share secrets when there's too much noise. They get shy, like children when grown-ups are arguing." Dr. Webb rolls her eyes at this theatrical nonsense, muttering under her breath about time-wasting fairy tales. Her 30 years of aerospace engineering experience rebels against the notion that sophisticated machinery responds to emotional considerations. But Captain Santos raises her weathered hand for silence, and the hangar falls into the cathedral quietly. The sudden absence of human chatter reveals the building's hidden sounds: distant rumble of aircraft on active runways, electronic whisper of monitoring equipment processing terabytes of data, air conditioning systems cycling through their program sequences, the mechanical heartbeat of an airport that never sleeps. Zara places her ear against different sections of the aircraft, moving with the focused concentration that only children possess when they believe completely in their impossible purpose. Her grandfather's photograph remains clutched in one hand, Master Sergeant Williams smiling from his frame like a guardian angel watching over his granddaughter's first real test. She moves like a tiny doctor examining a giant patient, her untrained hands seeking vibration patterns that million-dollar sensors somehow overlook. Each touch carries the reverence her grandfather taught her. Machines aren't just metal and circuits, but living entities deserving respect and understanding. "Can you start just the left engine, please?" she asks, looking up at Captain Santos with eyes that seem far older than 12 years. "I need to hear its voice alone first before they start talking to each other." Santos exchanges glances with the lead technician, who shrugs with the resignation of a man who's witnessed 2 months of expensive failure. He initiates the startup sequence through his laptop, sending commands that travel through fiber-optic cables to engine management computers. The Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 comes to life with a sound like controlled thunder. 30,000 pounds of thrust contained within precision-engineered metal housings. Titanium turbine blades spinning at temperatures that would melt steel. The mechanical poetry of combustion turned into forward motion through engineering principles that would seem like magic to previous generations. To the adults gathered in the hangar, it sounds perfect. Smooth acceleration through startup sequence, powerful rumble settling into steady operation. Everything a world-class aircraft engine should be. The sound of human engineering triumph. But Zara tilts her head like a puppy hearing distant music, her expression growing troubled as she processes frequencies that exist beyond adult perception. She moves to different positions around the engine, her small ear pressed against access panels while her fingers feel for rhythm patterns in the vibrations that travel through metal and into bone. "Now the right engine, please," she requests after several minutes of intense listening. "But keep the left one running. I need to hear how they talk to each other." The second engine spools up with identical mechanical poetry, its startup sequence matching its twin with computer-controlled precision. Twin giants singing in harmony, their combined voice filling the hangar with 60,000 pounds of thrust, barely contained by test cell protocols. Zara's face brightens momentarily as both engines run together in apparent perfect synchronization, then clouds with concern as her grandfather's training reveals subtle discord in their mechanical conversation. She moves between them like a conductor reading an orchestra, sensing rhythms and harmonies that sophisticated diagnostic equipment categorizes as insignificant variations. The crowd watches in fascination as this tiny figure weaves between landing gear and engine mounts, completely unintimidated by machinery that could incinerate her in milliseconds if something went wrong. Her movements carry the fearless confidence that children possess before the world teaches them to be afraid. After 5 minutes that feel like hours to the watching adults, she steps back and looks directly at Blackstone with the expression of a child who's just solved a puzzle that confounded every grown-up in the room. "Your left engine has a different heartbeat than your right engine," Zara announces, her child's voice carrying impossible certainty that cuts through the hangar's mechanical symphony. "It's beating 0.3% faster because it's trying to take care of its friend, but it's getting really tired from working so hard." Dr. Webb snorts with derision that echoes off steel walls, her professional reputation stinging from months of failure now compounded by childish presumption. 0.3% variation is well within normal operational parameters, child. Our instruments measure RPM fluctuations to thousandths of a percent accuracy. If there was any significant discrepancy, our diagnostic systems would have detected and flagged it immediately. She gestures towards the wall of monitoring equipment that represents $5 million in cutting-edge technology. We have sensors that can detect molecular-level stress fractures, computers that process more data in 1 second than you'll learn in your entire lifetime. The idea that a homeless child could notice something our equipment missed is absolutely preposterous. But something in Zara's specific precision, 0.3%, not a little bit or kind of different, makes Captain Santos lean forward with the interest of someone who's learned to recognize truth in unexpected packages. How can you be so exact about that number, sweetheart? Zara's explanation carries the simple logic of a child who's never learned that some things are supposed to be impossible, unencumbered by the weight of engineering orthodoxy that constrains adult thinking. My grandfather taught me to count engine heartbeats like counting music beats in songs. When 2 engines run together perfectly, they should sound like one really big engine singing, but yours sounds like 2 people trying to dance to different songs that don't match. She demonstrates by having the technicians measure RPM variations at specific intervals, something no diagnostic protocol had thought to analyze because computer systems automatically dismissed variations within acceptable tolerances as irrelevant background noise. The measurements, displayed on screens that cost more than luxury automobiles, confirm her impossible observation with mathematical precision. The left engine consistently operates 0.3% faster than the right engine, a difference so subtle that sophisticated diagnostics register it as normal operation while completely missing its mechanical significance. But that's mechanically impossible, Dr. Webb protests, her voice rising with the frustration of expertise confronted by inexplicable evidence. These engines operate independently through separate management systems. There's no mechanical connection that would create sympathetic behavior patterns between isolated power plants. Zara's answer carries the devastating simplicity of truth, spoken by those too young to understand that complexity often obscures rather than illuminates, because they're friends, and friends try to help each other even when they don't know the right way to do it. Like when my friend Sarah tried to help me carry my really heavy backpack at school, but she kept stumbling because she was working too hard to keep up with me. Using her grandfather's frequency listening technique refined through countless evenings in his garage workshop, Zara requests complete silence again while both engines run at cruise power settings that simulate flight conditions. She moves around the aircraft like a conductor reading musical notation in a mechanical symphony, her untrained ears somehow detecting harmonic discord that million-dollar acoustic analysis equipment overlooks entirely. The diagnostic team watches in growing amazement as this 12-year-old homeless child demonstrates auditory sensitivity that their instruments fail to match. She pauses at specific locations, tilts her head at precise angles, processes frequency combinations through neural pathways that formal education hasn't yet constrained with conventional limitations. The new computer you put in is making sounds that scare the engines, she announces after 10 minutes of intense listening that leaves sweat beading on her forehead despite the hangar's air conditioning. It talks in a language they don't understand, like when grown-ups yell in angry words that make children want to hide under blankets where it's safe. Her childlike explanation reframes 2 months of mechanical mystery in emotional terms that sound ridiculous until Captain Santos begins translating them into technical language that aerospace engineers can process and understand. Dear God, Santos realizes, her pilot's experience suddenly making connections that pure engineering methodology had missed completely. She's describing harmonic frequency interference between the new avionics package and the original engine management systems, different operational frequencies creating acoustic conflict. Zara nods eagerly, her face lighting up with the joy of finally finding an adult who understands her grandfather's lessons about machine communication. At my old foster home, when the mean supervisor man would yell really loud with scary, angry voices, all us kids would shut down and try to disappear into our rooms. That's exactly what your engines are doing. They're too scared to work properly when the new computer talks mean to them with harsh sounds. The solution, Zara explains with heartbreaking simplicity that cuts through months of overcomplicated analysis, isn't replacing expensive components or redesigning complex systems that work perfectly in isolation. You don't need to throw away the scared engines or the loud computer, she says, her small hands gesturing toward the massive machinery with proprietorial affection earned through understanding rather than ownership. You just need to teach them to be friends and talk nice to each other. Using her grandfather's basic laptop and frequency measurement techniques, tools that seem laughably primitive compared to the surrounding wall of diagnostic equipment, she demonstrates how a simple $50 software adjustment acts like a translator between feuding mechanical systems. The recalibration works like magic disguised as engineering. The moment of ultimate truth arrives like a gathering storm. Blackstone demands absolute, irrefutable proof before he'll trust his $80 million aircraft to the diagnosis of a homeless 12-year-old child whose entire worldly possessions fit in a backpack. "Full engine test," he announces, his voice carrying the weight of a man whose empire hangs in the balance. "Complete simulation of the exact flight conditions where all 3 previous catastrophic failures occurred. Altitude simulation 41,000 feet, speed simulation Mach 0.85. Environmental parameters matching every single failure. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Zara is wrong, if her childish intuition has misread the mechanical symphony she claims to understand, the harmonic interference could trigger catastrophic engine failure that destroys the aircraft completely. $80 million reduced to twisted metal and shattered dreams. But if the engines shut down again, if her $50 software fix proves worthless against sophisticated mechanical rebellion, more than money dies. Blackstone's company faces bankruptcy. Hundreds of employees lose their jobs. The Tokyo deal evaporates along with his reputation as a leader who makes impossible decisions under ultimate pressure. The hangar fills with tension so thick it seems to press against the walls. News helicopters circle overhead like mechanical vultures drawn to the scent of potential disaster. Social media streams explode with #12-year-old genius hashtags as millions worldwide watch a homeless child attempt to prove that wisdom sometimes comes in the smallest packages. International aviation experts debate the test's validity in real-time television commentary. MIT professors explain why children cannot possess diagnostic capabilities that surpass PhD-level expertise. Boeing engineers express skepticism that harmonic frequency adjustments could solve mechanical mysteries that stumped their best teams. Inside the hangar, Zara stands dwarfed by the massive aircraft and towering adults whose expensive suits cost more than most families earn in months. Her oversized janitor's uniform hangs like a tent on her malnourished frame. Her bare feet, having outgrown shoes held together with duct tape, make no sound against polished concrete that reflects fluorescent lights like mirrors. Everything about this moment screams impossibility. David versus Goliath doesn't adequately describe the mismatch between a homeless child and the combined expertise of aerospace engineering's finest minds. This is more like a sparrow challenging a hurricane, a whisper attempting to silence thunder. "Are you absolutely certain about this, sweetheart?" Captain Santos asks, kneeling to Zara's eye level with the protective concern of someone who's learned to recognize courage in unexpected places. If something goes wrong during this test, it could be very dangerous. Zara clutches her grandfather's photograph like a talisman against the adult world's crushing doubt. Master Sergeant Williams smiles from his frame with the confidence of a man who taught his granddaughter that machines speak to those brave enough to listen with love instead of logic. "Grandfather always said that engines don't lie to children," she whispers, her voice barely audible above the electronic hum of diagnostic equipment. "They told me they just want to sing together instead of being scared. I believe them." The test begins with ceremonial gravity that feels like a space launch. Captain Santos assumes primary control, her 30 years of aviation experience providing the steady hand that nervous billionaires and skeptical engineers require. Dr. Webb monitors every parameter through equipment that processes more data per second than university supercomputers. The engines start with controlled thunder that fills the hangar like the voice of mechanical gods. Rolls-Royce Pearl 700 power plants spinning up through their startup sequence, titanium turbine blades accelerating to speeds that would destroy lesser materials, combustion chambers containing temperatures hot enough to melt steel. But this time, something is different. The sound carries harmony that wasn't there before, twin engines singing in perfect synchronization instead of fighting invisible battles. The left engine's RPM matches the right engine exactly. No more compensatory behavior. No more mechanical exhaustion from trying to help a friend in distress. "Simulation parameters engaged," Captain Santos announces, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they're attempting. Altitude 41,000 feet. Speed Mach .85. All environmental conditions matching previous failure events. For 90 seconds that feel like hours compressed into heartbeats, the engines maintain perfect harmony. No warning lights blinking urgent red, no alarm systems screaming mechanical distress, no computer displays showing system conflicts that triggered previous emergency shutdowns. The harmonic interference that terrorized this aircraft for 2 months has vanished like morning mist before summer sun. Zara's $50 software adjustment acts like a peace treaty between feuding mechanical nations, teaching systems to communicate in languages they both understand. All parameters green, Dr. Webb announces, her voice thick with disbelief that threatens to crack her professional composure. Perfect synchronization across all engine management systems, no harmonic interference detected, no system conflicts identified. The crowd erupts in spontaneous applause that echoes off steel walls like thunder. Airport workers pressed against windows cheer with the enthusiasm of underdogs witnessing impossible victory. Social media explodes with viral videos of a homeless child solving problems that defeated aerospace engineering's finest minds. But in the center of the celebration, Zara simply smiles and whispers to her grandfather's photograph, "They're not scared anymore, grandfather. Can you hear them singing?" The aftermath of impossible success feels like the moment after lightning strikes. Electric silence filled with the echo of miracles witnessed by those who never believed in magic. Blackstone kneels on the hangar's polished concrete, his $15,000 suit creasing as he brings himself to 12-year-old Zara's eye level. His face carries the expression of a man whose entire understanding of the world has shifted in 90 seconds of perfect engine harmony. "Sweetheart," he says, his voice thick with emotion that surprises even him. "I owe you the biggest apology of my life, and I owe you so much more than money." The $30,000 check materializes from his jacket pocket, but his hands shake as he realizes how inadequate financial compensation feels for what this homeless child has accomplished. She hasn't just solved a mechanical problem. She's demonstrated wisdom that PhD programs don't teach and universities can't replicate. "Zara," he continues, using her name with the respect reserved for equals rather than the condescension adults typically show children, "you should never have to sleep in a car again. You should never have to eat from trash cans or wonder where your next meal comes from. You should never have to be alone." His voice cracks with the weight of recognition. This brilliant child has been abandoned by every system designed to protect her. Would you let me and my wife adopt you, give you the family you deserve, the education your gift requires, a future worthy of your extraordinary mind?" Captain Santos steps forward, her weathered pilot's face glowing with the satisfaction of witnessing impossible truth triumph over institutional skepticism. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," she announces to the rolling cameras and live news feeds, "you've just witnessed something that will change aviation forever." Her voice carries the authority of someone who's made life and death decisions at 40,000 feet. This remarkable young woman doesn't just understand machines. She understands the soul of technology itself. Every engineering school in the world should study her methods and question their own assumptions about wisdom and expertise. The viral explosion begins immediately. Homeless genius adopted trends globally within minutes. News networks scramble to book interviews with the child who humbled aerospace engineering's finest minds. University professors debate the implications of intuitive diagnostics that surpass computer analysis. But Blackstone's most significant announcement comes last, spoken with the conviction of someone whose life has been fundamentally changed by a homeless child's whispered wisdom. "I'm establishing the Zara Williams Foundation," he declares to the global audience, "dedicated to finding and supporting brilliant children who've been overlooked by traditional systems. Because genius doesn't come with credentials, it comes with courage to believe in impossible solutions." Zara clutches her grandfather's photograph, tears streaming down her dirt-stained cheeks as she whispers the words that will echo in hearts worldwide. "Grandfather always said everyone has magic inside them. Maybe if I help fix broken things, people won't forget their magic anymore." The wheels of professional justice turn with the grinding inevitability of mechanical precision, and Dr. Patricia Webb finds herself caught in gears she never saw coming. Within 24 hours of Zara's triumph, Webb's consulting firm received termination notices from 3 major airline clients. The contracts, worth millions of dollars annually, evaporate like morning mist as corporate executives question methodologies that missed solutions a homeless 12-year-old discovered in 1 hour. "How do we explain to our boards," demands the CEO of Delta Airlines during a conference call that Webb will replay in nightmares, "that we paid your team $6 million over 2 years to solve engine problems that a child fixed with $50 software adjustments?" United Airlines follows within hours, then America, then Emirates. The domino effect spreads through the aviation industry with viral velocity, each cancellation carrying the implicit message that expertise without humility becomes expensive blindness. Webb's reputation, built over 30 years of solving impossible problems, crumbles like a house of cards in a hurricane. Aviation Week publishes a scathing editorial titled, "When PhDs Forget to Listen, the Zara Williams Lesson." Industry forums buzz with discussions about intellectual arrogance and the dangers of dismissing unconventional solutions. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, her alma mater, quietly removes her name from their advisory board. Speaking engagements at aerospace conferences get canceled. Job offers from Boeing and Lockheed Martin disappear like smoke and wind. But the universe isn't finished with Dr. Webb's education. 6 months after Zara's miracle, Webb receives a call from her former assistant. Another impossible diagnostic problem has emerged, this time involving a commercial airliner's navigation system that fails only during specific weather conditions. 3 teams of experts have spent 4 months finding nothing wrong. "Dr. Webb," the assistant says carefully, "the airline is requesting consultation from the Williams team." The Williams team. 12-year-old Zara, now living with her adoptive family and attending the best STEM academy money can buy, has become the aerospace industry's go-to consultant for problems that conventional expertise can't crack. Her empathetic diagnostic methods are taught in universities worldwide as breakthrough approaches to human-machine interface analysis. The irony cuts deeper than professional pride. Webb must now call the homeless child she publicly humiliated, asking for help with problems that her own methods can't solve. The phone call happens on a Tuesday morning that feels like Judgment Day. Webb dials the number with hands that shake like autumn leaves, knowing that millions of people will watch her humiliation play out on social media feeds worldwide. "Hello, Dr. Webb." Zara's voice carries the gentle wisdom of someone who's learned that forgiveness heals both giver and receiver. "I heard about the navigation problem. I'd be happy to help." No recrimination, no gloating, no demand for apology, just a child's pure desire to fix broken things and help people who need assistance. Webb's voice cracks as she speaks words that taste like ashes and redemption simultaneously. "Zara, I came to thank you. Not just for helping with this problem, but for teaching me something I should have learned decades ago." "What's that, Dr. Webb?" "That listening to people is just as important as listening to machines. That wisdom doesn't always come with degrees or experience. That being right about most things doesn't make you right about everything." Webb pauses, gathering courage for words that will define the rest of her career. "You made me a better engineer. More importantly, you made me a better human being." The conversation becomes a viral video that generates more positive press than Webb's entire previous career. But this time, she's not the expert being celebrated. She's the student learning humility from a teacher young enough to be her granddaughter. Professional justice, it turns out, sometimes arrives disguised as grace. 1 year later, Zara Williams sits in her new bedroom, surrounded by aerospace textbooks and the gentle hum of her grandfather's restored tools. The Blackstone family's mansion feels like a dream compared to sleeping in parking lots, but the photo of Master Sergeant Williams still holds the place of honor on her desk. She's helped solve 23 more impossible engineering problems across 6 countries. Her empathetic diagnostic methods now taught in universities worldwide as the Williams Protocol. The foundation bearing her name has identified and supported over 400 brilliant homeless children, proving that genius blooms everywhere when someone believes enough to listen. Every morning she whispers her grandfather's motto like a prayer. "Machines don't lie to children. They save their secrets for hearts that haven't forgotten how to believe in magic." Sometimes the person with the solution isn't the one with the fanciest education. It's the one with the purest heart and courage to whisper, "Let me try," when everyone else has given up. Have you ever been told you're too young, too different, or not qualified enough to matter? Tell us in the comments below, because every whisper deserves to be heard. And if you look closely at minute 432, you'll notice something only the sharpest viewers catch about Zara's technique that reveals why children see what adults miss. Hit subscribe, Black Tales Stories, for more proof that magic lives in the space between heartbeats, waiting for someone brave enough to listen.